Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is going to be using this tree and stocking fancy tag die from Hero Arts, this brick stencil, and then this is the Winter Wishes. I thought I might use this one too. I wasn't sure on the sentiments, but I actually ended up going with the Winter Wishes bundle. So this is just plain white cardstock. This is their deluxe cardstock, and I am just figuring out how I need to trim down my paper so that it will fit in my little, what is this? Hero Arts, the little tiny cutter, compact cutter. That's what it is. Compact, tiny, they're synonyms, right? And so I'm going to cut several of these out of white cardstock, and this is just going to be so that later on I can use them to give my stockings a little bit of weight, because I'm not using them as tags, I'm using them on cards. But really the whole purpose of this video is to talk about custom coloring glitter die cuts. I am a big fan of buying white of something and then making my own. Mostly because I found that to be cheaper, I'm going to be honest. So I don't buy a lot of colored cardstock or colored glitter paper. And so I just kind of wanted to show you guys how you can do the same. Or if you have a project that you're working on that you really want it to be matchy-matchy, that happens to me a lot, this is a good way to make it match. So for the background of these cards, I am using this brick stencil and just a little bit of, I think it was granite that I chose. So I'm putting down a little bit in the background just so it's not stark white. And then I'm going to tape my stencil in place. I'm doing these as landscape so that all three of my stockings will fit. And once I have this taped down, then I was unfortunately covering a little bit of my cardstock, so I had to readjust that piece of tape. But once I have it taped down, then I will go in and I will do another layer of the granite just to make it a little bit darker, concentrating mostly in the middle and then just kind of letting it fade off to the edges. Basically, I just wanted the appearance that my stockings were being hung on a mantle somewhere. I didn't necessarily need to do a whole scene. Just thought it was a good background for these, that's all. So, yeah, I like the matchy-matchy, and that's how I roll. If you're just interested in the matchy-matchy, I think you probably want to jump to maybe like the 4-minute mark. And that's where we get started. So just here in a little bit, if you've made it this far, just keep on trucking. So this is the glitter paper basics from Hero Arts, and it's a white and a black that's included in the set. They also have holiday. I don't know how you would custom color a gold or a silver, but this is for like actual colors. Here, I'm just trimming these down so that way I'm not having to worry about my colors bleeding together, and I'm just making sure that I'm going to have enough room for my stocking and that I can save the other white glitter paper that I don't need for another project, because it is specialty paper. You know, it's not something that you use on everything. Unless you're me, I've been using quite a bit of this lately, I'm going to be honest. So the first way that we're going to custom color it is with reinkers and some alcohol. So these have like a little coating on the back, and alcohol evaporates really quickly. That's why I'm choosing to use alcohol and not water. I don't even know if water would work, to be honest, but this is the way that I chose to do it, and it worked well and held up. My color didn't come off on my fingers or anything like that. So I put down the alcohol. This one I probably put a little bit too much on, but to be fair, was the first one I did. So I put in 2 drops. This is Nautical, and this is the core reinkers from Hero Arts. They are a dye ink. Most inks on the market are. I don't necessarily know that this would work with a pigment, but if you have a dye ink, Hero Arts, I think Simon Says Stamp, Gina K, any of the Distress inks, if you have reinkers for those, you can use them. That should work. And then here, I just went in with like just a trash paintbrush. This is one of my kids' paintbrushes, and moved the pigment around. And again, I got a little bit too much alcohol, so I just kept working with it as it was evaporating until I got it to be relatively smooth, and you can still see all that beautiful glitter, and then I let it dry. This, I mean, come on, you know I was going to do blue. there's no choice there, honestly. So that one is done. I'm going to clean that up so I don't contaminate my next piece. And then for the next one, I used cherry. I used a little bit less alcohol and only 1 drop of color, and that still got the job done. Here I'm just wiping off the edge so that the reinker isn't like gross and dry when I go to use it the next time. And that same paintbrush that I've cleaned. So I did rinse it off, and because reinkers are super strong, I actually ended up getting up out of my seat and like rinsing it in my sink to make sure that it was clean. And then I'm just doing the same thing, kind of going over it until it looks smooth and I'm happy with the way that it looks. And then I'm going to set it aside to dry, clean up my area, and move on to the next color. These ones are my favorite. I'm not going to pretend like they aren't. This is the look that I liked the most of. It maintained the glitter underneath so well, but really took the color well also. And then so for the last one, I'm using Pine. And obviously I'm doing these with stockings. Again, I got a little bit too much alcohol. You can see that here, that it's very liquid on top. I am going to go in here in a second and just kind of blot up a little bit of it and then smooth it out. The blotting up did lighten the color quite a bit where I blotted it, but I was able to just go right over it with the paintbrush and had no issues with it being more of like a seamless color. And now that I've taken a break to clear my throat, we're back again with the same show. So just working this in, and then again, once it was smooth and even, I was happy with it. You could still see all the beautiful glitters. Then I'm going to set this aside to dry as well because we're using alcohol. They really did not take a long time to dry, and I didn't notice the color coming off. So that's what these 3 look like. Now we're going to do the second type. The second type is for if you do not have reinkers, but you do maybe have some mixed media. So these are one of the sets of white cardstock stockings I just cut out. I am going to use low tack tape, and then I'm going to go direct, take my ink pad, this is nautical, it's the same color scheme we used before, direct to the paper because I wanted it to be nice and dark. I'm going to blend this in with my blending brush just to make sure that I got all the nooks and crannies and I don't have any excess ink sitting on top. And then I'm going to just move this up to dry, clean up, and again do my next color the same exact way. You could do the ink blending without taking the pad direct to the paper. You're just going to get a much lighter color. And so I wanted mine to be really solid. You could also completely skip this step and cut them out of colored cardstock. That would work as well. I just was kind of on this make your own kick, and so I decided to make my own. But you certainly could skip it and then use colored cardstock, and that would probably work just as well. So, and then again, the last one will be Pine, and I'm putting that tape right up where the white portion of the stocking would start. What is that? Like the cap, the fluffy part. You know what I'm saying? The poofies. I don't really know what the name of that is. So again, with the green and then going in with the blending brush. Now, I am going to use the negative of my die cut to help me create a kind of like a placeholder, a template. I'm just going to tape this down to my work surface because I'm working on my glass mat, and I'm going to be able to just pick up those stockings. I left the masking tape on them that's protecting that white part, and I'm just going to pick them up. I'm going to drop them right in here so that they fit in perfectly, and then I'm going to go in with my Hero glitter paste. This glitter paste is clear, it's just sparkle, and so this is the second way that you can kind of make them your own custom glittery die cuts. And the template that we're using is going to help so that we don't get glitter like on the edges, hanging over the edges, because this stuff is a little bit challenging to get off once it's dry. So if we have parts that are hanging over that dry, I'm not really sure how I'd get rid of them. File maybe? Nail file maybe? I'm not sure. But this worked for me. And I didn't have any issues with it picking up any of the color. As you can see, you know, I'm just going one color right after the other. My template is staying clean. My, I want to call it a spatula, but I don't think that's what it's called. Palette knife. There we go, Kelly. My palette knife is staying clean. No, I didn't have any issues with colors transferring. And you can see up at the top of the screen that they are still very, very glittery. I'm going to remove the tape now. I didn't wait for them to be completely dry. I was worried that, very much like paint, like when you use painter's tape, you have to remove it while it's wet, or you're going to get the risk of it like pulling up your color or leaving some behind. So these ones you could probably just leave this way if you wanted to, but I liked the little extra die for the stocking cap. So this is them comparatively. The colors are a little bit different, even though we use the reinkers for the ink. And I think that's just because we mixed it with alcohol. So like the navy one is much less concentrated, but I think that's because I put so much alcohol on the paper. So that's a recipe, maybe something to play with in the future. I'm going to die cut out the ones out of the glitter paper, the actual glitter paper, because those weren't already stockings. So I'm going to die cut those out, and then we will move on to the tops. So I wanted them to be poofy, as previously described. You could cut more, like just out of the white glitter paper. That's the red one is cut out of glitter paper. So you could leave them like that and make them all glittery, but I chose not to do that. I wanted to make them puffy. So here, this is again the negative. I'm putting a piece of low-tack tape on the back, and I thought I cut all three of them out of the same, like in the same direction, but I didn't. I figured out pretty quickly that that second one was from the other side. So I just did two at a time, and it was fine. So I glued them down to the tape, and then I'm going to use this white puff embossing powder. This is great for snow or fuzzy things, all kinds of stuff. But I'm using the Hero Arts Emboss and Watermark ink to just rub that right over top of the entire die cut. And then I am going to sprinkle it with this white puff embossing powder and then heat set it. And this is a little bit different. It doesn't necessarily get smooth and shiny. It puffs up. Like it increases in size to give you that texture, which is really fun, you know, for like snow and things. But for me, it's going to be fluffy. It's going to be this fluffy part at the top of the stocking. So I'm just going to do that, and then we will get into the card making. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Kelly, why did you want glitter stockings? First of all, because I love the glitter and the shimmer and the shine and all that jazz. But it really reminded me of, so after when I got divorced, Nathan was 5, and our first Christmas together in the rental house, if you've been with me that long, the, what do we call it? The critter cottage, because I had so many unwanted guests. Oh, tree frogs and spiders everywhere and a slug and a mouse. Oh, here I just wanted to show you, this is what happens when you put multiple layers on. See how like bumped up and fuzzy and puffy it is? Super cute. But the first year that we were at the critter cottage, I had to buy I completely started over after I got divorced. I left with basically nothing but my craft room stuff. I had to buy all new furniture. I didn't have a Christmas tree. My sister ended up getting me one that she found on like a Black Friday deal for like $100 at Walmart. It was like a 4-foot tree, whatever. I had nothing. So, and I didn't have a lot of money. I had nothing. I was a single mom and I didn't have a lot of money. Let's talk about this real quick. So here, I missed this corner with the green, and so I went in with the pine and a blending brush, and I noticed that it kind of lightened the ink a little bit. And so I was kind of on a mission to see how I could fix that. I ended up going in with a Copic marker. I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't recommend this like long term because you can ruin your nibs. But I was just trying to make it a little bit matchy-matchy. so that it wasn't noticeable. So if you do the blending brushes after the fact on the glitter paper, just know that it's going to lighten it up. And that's a good hack to know in case your color gets too dark and you don't like it. So anyway, I was broke. I didn't have anything. So we went to Big Lots because I felt like, okay, I can afford to get some things to decorate the house with. And Nathan wanted to pick out new stockings. And so I let him pick the stockings. They totally did not match at all. They matched nothing. But this one was like this great big white and silver glittery stocking. It was ugly. There's no other way to say it. It was hideous. But he loved it. And that is the one that he wanted. And we still have it. We just bought new stockings last year because obviously we had to add Caitlin's in. But I didn't get rid of that stocking. I kept it because it just reminds me to be grateful for all the things that I have now. Because, man, I didn't have them. I did not always have them. And even though we were broke, like, my son didn't know that. My son didn't know that we didn't have a whole lot of money, because we went and we picked these things out. And so if you are in a position where you can help another family to do that for their kids, like I was lucky, and I was paying my bills and stuff, but I didn't have an excess of cash, to buy a lot of things. I just didn't. And I worked 4 jobs. And I have a bachelor's degree. So, for those of people who feel like making that argument, like, it's not that I was uneducated. It's not that I didn't have a job. I literally was just not making enough money to support a household on my own. I would encourage you to look into some charities or the Adopt-A Families, or, adopt a child Christmas tree this time of year. Like, I would encourage you, if you have the means, to spread that wealth and help somebody else in your community. Because anything that you can do to help these kids not feel like their family doesn't have the money, that's so immense for the parents, so immense for them, because maybe it's just a rough year. My parents worked in the trades. My parents were blue collar workers, and every Christmas, when my dad was a journeyman before he got promoted to a supervisor, every Christmas my dad got laid off. And my mom, who was a stay-at-home mom, would go work and get a part-time job. And we never knew as kids that we were broke. We didn't know, because they made those sacrifices for us. And did I probably buy my stocking at Big Lots or Walmart or Aldi or Save-A-Lot or, fill in the blank? Yeah, I probably did, but I didn't know that was any different than a Target or a Nordstrom or a Macy's or whatever. I had no idea, and neither does my son. So I am very grateful for the things that I have now, and I would encourage you, if you have an excess that you can share with somebody else anytime, but especially during the holiday season, I would encourage you to do that. So, back to the card. So at this point, we have stamped and heat embossed in white the banner, and now we are doing the sentiments that winter, I think it's winter wishes, there's a bunch of really nice sentiments that fit right in that banner, and so I just picked 2 of them. One says happy holidays and one says warm winter wishes. I heat set them, and then I'm going to trim them down so that I can cut them out with this banner and put them on the card. It's funny looking at this video now because the red one in the top right almost looks pink, but it's not. It's red. It must just be the way the light's hitting the camera. So anywho, once I cut those out, I can start building my card. And like I said, these are made to be tags, but you don't have to use them this way. This one also comes with a tree that you could use separately. My favorite one, actually, which I haven't even used yet, is the coffee mug with the little, like whipped cream on it. So stinking cute. Just love that one. So there's a bunch of different options there. I always start with the one in the middle to make sure that I have, like, it's easier to center things, to make sure they're evenly spaced if you start in the middle. So I am putting this down on the right hand side, and then I will put the one down on the left. And then I kind of played around with, where to put the sentiment. I left that part in, even though it's not necessary, just to kind of show you guys some of the ideas that I had for where to put the sentiment versus where I ended up putting the sentiment. And these ones are the ones that are the actual glitter paper. And I think they're so cute. So we started with a center. I thought maybe a center would be good. And then we started moving, you know, middle left, middle right, top, bottom, all that jazz. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it, you know, and I try to follow the rule of thirds, but it doesn't always end up that way. Just because the rule of thirds, if you're not familiar with what that is, please let me know. We'll cover that. We have covered it before, but we'll cover it again. So I ended up going with the top right for this one. And then for the next one, I ended up going with the bottom left. I did find that it was a little tricky getting my sentiments to stick to the glitter. So that's why you see me putting the little magnets from my desk on there. Once they were on there, I mean, maybe a minute, it was fine. But just so that they had something, a little bit of weight on them. For the, like, hanging of the stockings, I wanted to put something in there. And so I used the cork colored Hero Pearls, just one little dot, to look like they were hanging from something. And then that's it. That's both cards. So I hope you're inspired to kind of custom color your glitter die cuts and, you know, change up your project, do a little something new. I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.